Hi, this tutorial covers selection bias. So recall that just bias in general is the tendency for collected data to differ from what is expected in a systematic way. Biased data can often favor a specific group of those studied. Bias jeopardizes the accuracy of the data collected. Studies can be carried out and evaluated better if the different types of bias can be recognized. So let's define selection bias. Selection bias is a type of bias that occurs when some groups in the population are left out of the process of choosing the sample. Selection bias yields an unrepresentative sample. So if some groups are left out of the sampling process, they won't be reflected in the sample, so the features of the sample may differ significantly than the features of the population. So let's take a look at an example of a study where selection bias may come into play. So suppose that a large university is interested in learning about credit card debt among their students. A random sample of students is selected from the undergraduate dormitory residence lists and contacted. So selection bias has occurred here. Undergraduate students who do not live in the dorms, as well as graduate students, are unable to be selected for the survey. So because they're taking their sample only from these undergraduate dormitory lists, the students that don't live in the dorms as well as the graduate students are not able to be part of the study. Now that's important because these students may have very different financial situations than those who can afford to live in the dorms. So perhaps graduate students, because their tuition is generally more expensive and they already have maybe debt still from their undergraduate degree, they might be more likely to have higher amount of credit card debt than generally younger undergraduate students. So because these portions of the population were unable to be selected, selection bias had occurred. So a better way of selecting the sample would be to randomly dial phone numbers of enrolled students. This technique would allow all of the students to be part of the sample, giving you a much more representative sample. So this idea of randomly dialing phone numbers is a common method of selecting samples, generally called random digit dialing. And usually that's a good way of avoiding selection bias. So that is your tutorial on selection bias. Thanks for watching.